Welcome back to another episode of Titans of Foodservice, where we delve deep into the world of food service, having the conversations around innovation, creativity, and empowering stories with the movers and shakers who have made it to the top. I'm your host, Nick Portillo, and today I welcome Rosalyn Darling, a culinary innovator and entrepreneur whose passion for food, creativity, and business acumen have influenced the global food industry. At the heart of Rosalyn's approach lies what she calls culinary compassion, a unique mindset centered on humanity, emotions, and consumer care. With expertise in menu strategy, recipe development, new product formulation, and chef training, Rosalyn specializes in sparking aha moments in chefs and innovators, aligning consumer understanding with streamlined operations and brand strategy. And what's her impact? Faster market entry, deeper consumer loyalty, and fortified brand reputation. Rosalyn's impressive portfolio includes collaborations with Fortune 500 companies like PepsiCo, Kellogg's, Danone North America, King's Hawaiian, Sodexo, McDonald's, Wendy's, Avocados from Mexico, and many more. She's not just a corporate powerhouse. Rosalyn's wisdom shines at Flavor in the Menu culinary roundtables as a strategic partner with the Culinary Institute of America and as a keynote speaker at national conferences like Flavor in the Menu and MISE. Join us as we explore Rosalyn's extraordinary journey from PepsiCo to culinary stardom, where every creation reflects her personal kitchen adventures and professional mastery. Get ready to be inspired by a true titan of food service. Let's go ahead and welcome Rosalyn. Rosalyn, welcome to the Titans of Foodservice podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with me, and I'm looking forward to learning more about you and diving deeper into your journey here in the food service industry.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Why, thank you. So I'm just curious, how did you get into this crazy industry we call food service?
Oh my gosh. Where do I even start? Well, I mean, I've always been in love with food, pastry. Food has always been a love language. So I actually started French pastry when I was 4. And I started professional French technique at the age of 13. It's always been such a curiosity of mine, just seeing how people gather around the table and they connect over food. I knew I wanted to be a part of that. But that actually wasn't my first career. So chef was not my first career. I actually started in the world of brand marketing. Yes. I had immigrant parents, and in the 80s, being a chef was like not the typical first gen career path. I was kind of told, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a businesswoman, or be the news anchor Connie Chung. I don't know if you know her.
No, I don't.
Okay. She had really big hair. She was awesome. But anyways, I ended up going into marketing. I have marketing, entrepreneurial skills, and talent development. That's what I got my initial bachelor's degree on.
Oh, wow.
But I've always loved food, cooking, try to do little like startups as a kid. And I knew that even if I was doing marketing, I wanted it to be in food. And so the first company that I left out of college was at PepsiCo, and it was on the Quaker Oats brand, later to be the Global Nutrition Group. And it was taking, paper ideas and taking it all the way to the grocery shelf and everything in between that, from, going inside consumers' homes to discover, their breakfast behaviors and, kind of addressing those needs that they knew they needed, but some of the unanticipated needs too. And I'm going to say it was kind of serendipitous that being in marketing innovation at PepsiCo, I learned that there was a path called Culinary Research and Development. I was actually a client for a creative agency out of Boulder, and they helped to develop a lot of our really cool products that Quaker sells today, like the Real Medleys brand. I was part of the original launch in 2012 for that. And when I was in Boulder with this agency, I was like, oh my gosh, there is a discrepancy here. I need to be on the other side of this table.
Right.
This highly creative, very skilled, very talented group. And I just knew, I'm like, I need to be a R&D chef. I need to figure out a way. I will be back. And so I ended up rerouting all of my MBA money to go to culinary school at night while doing my PepsiCo job during the day, which I do not recommend that level of sleep deprivation.
Yes.
But I made the full switch in 2014 and started, developing new products from a culinary R&D point for PepsiCo, and moved into the fun, wild world of agency life. And that's where the food service piece came. It was a lot of menu ideations and working with manufacturers to help sell in their products to operators. And like any agency life, it's very fast and furious. And I was able to learn a lot. I was able to share a lot of that marketing piece, that insights piece into the work. And it just kept evolving. So I don't have that typical restaurant chef, experience, but now as a food service chef, I bring that marketing piece, I bring that insights piece, and, to be able to teach that at the CIA, to be able to speak on stage and share my truth and knowledge and inspire others. And along with, recipe development, I still do that. That's kind of that's my love language now. That's kind of my life's purpose. And I feel really grateful to be able to do what I love.
I love that. That
Yeah.
is, it's funny. I've interviewed so many people here on this podcast, and always ask. I typically lead off with the question of how did you get into food service, and how did you become who you've become? And it's interesting to see and hear the stories that I've picked up by interviewing all of these people of how they got into food service. It's one way or another. Most people didn't even expect to be in food service. You kind of hinted at, being a doctor or a lawyer or, a profession like that, which is very popular or very well talked about in schools. But
Yeah.
food service and being in the food industry is not necessarily one that's talked about all that much. So it's been really fascinating to see how people get into this industry.
Yeah. I feel like it's never a linear path.
Yeah.
Right. And it's definitely, you got to love it, because sometimes I joke around, but like joking, not joking, it's kind of Stockholm syndrome. It is a wild ride, like it is hard work, but it is rewarding. And it can be turbulent. We saw that the last few years of what, the world can do to our industry. And so to really hang on, to really, find ways to fall in love with the food service industry every day. That's kind of what you got to do to survive and thrive.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, totally.
On the culinary innovation side, what are some of the skills that somebody would need to be successful at that job?
I think that, just beyond being a chef and having that technical knowledge, I think that having a deep sense of empathy will take you very far.
Okay.
It's food is love, right? And it's a medium actually for how we connect. There's nothing better than coming together at the dinner table and breaking bread, sharing the same meal. And having a chef that understands, what's happening in that person's world and what they carry with them when they come to the table is really important, because we have the ability to show that love, to show that care, to show that comfort or joy through the food that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a much deeper meaning than just calories. So I think a deep sense of empathy, understanding, and that's where like the consumer insights and marketing comes into play, right? Like,
Yeah.
what story do you tell? What emotional craving are you satisfying? I think that's kind of what takes a chef from like to the next tier, to the next level
Mm-hmm.
of their career. Yeah.
And where do you get inspiration from on, on the new innovative items that you create?
Oh my gosh. That is a great question. I think that every chef has different inspiration. And for me, it's literally everywhere. It's not just the publications of ingredients and movies, like that definitely helps. That kind of spurs the conversation. But honestly, It's taking a walk outside. It's, experiencing the world around you. Like, go to that music concert, go to that art gallery, go hang out with your friends and, just kind of like just talk about life. It's doing arts and crafts. Like, I'm a big arts and crafts person, and I find that creativity, the process of it, is very similar throughout different mediums. So, are you making clothing? Are you making shoes? Are you making jewelry? Are you doing a painting? Are you composing a song? Um, they follow very similar creativity paths. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you tap into other creatives that are outside of your industry, you can take pieces of that and bring it with you. And those inspirations, by the way, I just got to say it out loud, is like, when that hits, you have to just stop and catch it.
Right.
There's a lot of times when I'm sitting there, I was like, oh my God, I just thought of this great idea. You know what? I'll write it down later. I'm like right in the middle of something and I'll write it down later. And I never remember it. It is the most frustrating thing. Or I'll remember it, but not in that provocative way when it came to me initially. Ideas and inspiration it's kind of like clouds going through the sky, and you just got to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. When you come up with new, when you have inspiration, is it ever seasonal? Could it be maybe you've traveled to a certain new area or different country? Or maybe it's even something that's on trend currently with, what's going on in food service at that time?
Yes, I definitely think that travel, collecting new experiences,
Mm-hmm.
that will always just kind of seep into the collection of experiences and thoughts that you already have. And it just kind of meshes it all together. So, having the more experiences that you can have, the more conversations that you can have, you learn. And every inspiration will still translate differently person by person because we all have different collective experiences, values, heritages, and backgrounds. So I always just, tell my fellow chefs and peeps in our industry is like, share
Mm-hmm.
your knowledge. It's a very old school way of thinking to hold on to what you have and protect it. But I feel like that's kind of coming from a place of scarcity.
Yeah.
And when you come from a place of abundance and sharing, you lift everybody up with you, and everybody kind of wins in their own way. And there's enough room for all of us
Yeah,
to do what we
absolutely.
do. Yeah.
When you were at Quaker, you were, I think you mentioned you were on the R&D side there.
Mhm.
What are some of the inputs that you have to look at when creating a product on a mass scale like that?
Yeah. It's going to be, I was going to say, three things, three must haves that can spawn creativity, but they still need to meet these three things. It's your cogs.
Mm.
I mean, these aren't like sexy at all. It's your cogs. It's your shelf life slash uh, water activity,
Mm-hmm.
moisture migration. That's so technical. But then that other piece too is being able to meet the consumer need. It's telling that story. It's being able to connect with your consumers. I feel like the R&D side of it will only take you so far if you can't tell the story or meet the consumer need. If you cannot get your cogs and your like very nitty gritty distribution in order, like that won't matter either. But also like meeting what your consumers are wanting. You can't really do two of the three and have a very successful product. And I know there's like so many more that whoever is listening is be like, but there's more. But like,
Yeah.
of course there's more. But like, I feel like those are like kind of the three table stakes that you need.
I
Yeah.
think those make pretty logical sense to have, especially
Yeah.
when creating food is you want to know how much does it cost to make this thing and how long is it going to last and will people want it? Is there a need for it?
Yeah. Is
Um,
it delicious? Does it connect to people? Is it like, what is it feeding them besides
exactly.
calories? Yeah. Yeah.
When you look back on your career, is there anything or any item or product that you've created or idea that most sticks out to you as one that is you're most proud of, or at least one that is very memorable to you?
Hmm. I would say, I mean, there's so many projects, but I'm just going to start with kind of the first one that hooked me in.
Hmm.
Quaker Real Medleys. It started as this idea of, oatmeal can be pretty pedestrian. It's like raisins, brown sugar, and almonds. Cool. But like, how do we elevate that, right? Like,
Sure.
I think like some of the kisses of death that we heard from focus groups is like, it makes a great camping food. And I'm like, oh,
Right? You don't want to hear that.
great. It's like, oh, you got to be so hungry and desperate that all of a sudden, like, that sounds good. Like, we don't want that. We want to elevate it. We want to we want to make oatmeal enjoyable, something that people actually even look forward to. We wanted to make it convenient. We learned that on average, people only spend 13 minutes on their whole breakfast routine, period. From the moment they start cooking to cleanup, 13 minutes, right? So it's like, how do you give that elevated oatmeal experience in 13 minutes or less? And that's where Quaker Real Medleys came from. It was a great team that I worked with. They showed how collaborative, cross functionals could be. We didn't compromise on taste and flavor. We used we pushed our cogs to the very limit that leadership would let us. And in the end, we had these four beautiful flavors of oatmeal, and not just oatmeal, but like whole grains and freeze dried
Mhm.
fruits, and a very flavorful experience that we could be proud of. And the industry validated that. They made it, national grocery store item of the year. And that's where I knew it's like, man, that this is where I want to be. And since then, I've done a lot of other really fun projects around fruit and grains and plant based and really amazing steak
Yeah.
and kombucha and cannabis edibles. But it's always that first one that hooks you in.
And on that note, tell me about what are you up to in present day?
Present day, a lot of irons in the fire, and it's all very exciting. Just to see how the industry has really grasped onto it. So now, I do still do recipe innovation. I do new product formulation, both in commercial and non-commercial
Okay.
food service segments. I can't tell who my clients are, of course, but I can
Yeah.
tell you that it's very exciting stuff on a very wide scale. I teach at the CIA continuing education for corporate chefs. I'm very grateful for that. And then a lot of public speaking. I always joke like public speaking is probably the best drug, at least for me.
Yeah.
I really love connecting with people and witnessing those aha moments. Like you can see it from stage when people are just like, whoa. I was like, yeah, that's right, we can do this, right? So a lot of teaching public speaking, and currently in the process of, like, knock on wood, writing a book that talks
Mhm.
about this idea of culinary compassion. It's what I've been teaching at the CIA. It's what I've been teaching on stage. I always incorporated it into my innovation mindset. And culinary compassion is this innovation mindset that revolves around human experiences, human emotion. And by understanding that human emotion, like, how can we design foods and beverages that tap into that deeper part of ourselves? Because
Mhm.
when you can really connect with the consumer that way, you build brand loyalty, you can
That's
drive
right.
repeat. And on top of that, it's a really satisfying, fulfilling sense that you're taking care of your consumers. So culinary compassion is definitely something that's been very top of mind. And I'm very excited to continue the ball rolling. This is the first time I've ever said to anybody that I'm working on a book. I'm working on a book. We'll see how it goes.
Is the book around culinary compassion?
It is. It's kind of a cookbook in some ways. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Flavor Bible. The Flavor Bible is also a reference of what's complementary to what, and it's more of like a mindset and reference piece. So culinary compassion is this idea that people eat their foods and eat their feelings, drink their feelings, and that changes from country to country. What one dish that's made in India to celebrate, those ingredients and those cooking techniques that symbolize celebration in India might be different for Italy, might be different for Japan. And so the book is going to be exploring what those culinary signatures are, what those cooking techniques are that help a country emote through food.
I really like that.
Wild,
it's funny
right?
You bring that up.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring that up because this last weekend, my wife and I were out on a walk, and I think we just started talking about, we met in college, I think, talking about how we met and whatnot. And then it came to the idea of like, what did you eat as a kid? And, like Gushers and fruit roll-ups. And she's like, why don't we just go to the store and buy all that stuff and watch football? Like it was and like by eating those snacks, which are not good for you, I didn't necessarily feel good at the end of the day, but it brought back so many memories of just being a kid and having fun. And, the packaging is fun and everything is filled with red dye and sugar. But it was just a really cool experience. And you're right. Ingredients and food, in this case, very highly processed food, it does create that kind of an emotional experience.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to tell my husband about that idea when we watch football for kickoff this Thursday, I think.
Yep.
But I think that if that nostalgia, that joy, that feeling of freedom and release, is that what you would kind of attribute the Gushers and all of that like candy to symbolize?
Totally. Yeah, I think it definitely symbolizes, I think, my childhood, freedom, fun,
Yeah.
all those types of things.
Cool. Well, you want to do a thought exercise then on Gushers then? Is this too nerdy
I'd love
to
to.
do? Okay.
Yeah.
So if we think about Gushers and it's
Okay.
multi-textural, it's colorful, it has this novel flavor. It's a little weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the sensory attributes that you can kind of see like maybe that's what childhood is for you. It's full of color and wonder and flavors, whether that's like this contrast of tangy and sweet, or it's this contrast of textures that kind of is surprising. That can be the common thread of what childhood nostalgia and freedom and joy mean. And so, how do you take these sensory attributes and turn it into a more adult like food? What does that look like? Could that be a dessert that's savory and sweet? Could that be using like bold, bright colors in your plating? Could that be something that's a little unexpected? Like, oh, I just bit into this thing, and then all of a sudden, it was like almost like a flavor explosion in my mouth. Like, I think that's what the popping boba in bubble tea. That's the elevated version of a gusher, if you think about it.
That's very true.
Right? And that can symbolize joy and happiness. So it's kind of looking behind the matrix of what makes something can like be associated with that emotion. Yeah.
I've never heard someone so eloquently describe a gusher. That you were so spot on, and like how you started, describing it, and maybe how I view my childhood. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do view it that way. And spot on. Very well done there.
Ah, thanks. Thanks for riffing with me. I don't always hit it, but when I do, it feels pretty good. So thanks for nerding out with me on that one.
Yeah, of course. When you do your public speaking engagements, what are some of is culinary compassion the topic that you typically talk about, or is there or are there other things that you usually talk about?
Culinary compassion is one of the main things I'm talking about. I
Hmm.
think, it's that tool has been years in the making, and I made the intention that this year would be the formal rollout to the industry. But I also teach in other ways of, like at Expo East later this month. I'm talking about like how CPGs can think about getting into food service. Like, what are the implications that you need to think about to address the purchasing considerations of a chef operator? Like that can be pretty tactical.
Hmm.
And fun. And another one too is actually just helping chefs think through what their branding is and what they stand for. I think the common thread is like, I just want people, brands, products to kind of be authentically themselves, to speak their truth, because where the beauty lies is in the differences that we all bring. It's the complementary set. So a lot of what I teach is kind of like thinking about how do you how do you bring yourself to the world, like what things excite you, what brands, what I'm sorry, I'm trying to think through this. It's like a very great question. I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly. It's just, how do you best convey your truth and the beauty of what you want to bring to the world? And that's just not just brands, but that's people, that's chefs, that's
Yeah,
restaurants,
yeah,
because I feel like the more authentic you are to yourself, um, the more people see that, and they will gravitate to that. You will find those consumers, you will find your following and your tribe, and the connection will just be so much deeper. That is
absolutely.
definitely a very ethereal, very amorphous way of thinking it, and that's definitely a lifelong journey. I will not say that I've mastered it, but I'm definitely trying.
Yeah. You mentioned the CPG companies going from retail to food service. I'm a food service broker myself, and we get a
Nice.
lot of companies that reach out to us looking to for representation, and they've figured out in one way or another the retail grocery side of the business, the CPG side, but getting into food service. Are we both selling food, retail and food service? Yes. Are they, do you buy oatmeal in retail, oatmeal and food service? Yes. However, there's still such great differences. What are some of the ways that companies can bridge that gap from CPG to food service?
Yes, I think it's understanding a few things. It's understanding that that commercial kitchen mindset is going to be so much different than a home kitchen, in the
Mhm.
ways that there's only so many SKUs that a commercial kitchen will hold. It takes a lot to be a pantry item in a commercial kitchen. A lot of hoops you got to jump through. And in order to justify being that new SKU, you got to show that your product can pull its weight on the menu. So that's not just like one, two, or even three items on a menu. I know that a lot of operators now, especially after COVID, it's like 7 to 10 items on a menu. And it can be throughout
Mhm.
food and beverage or morning or nighttime, but it really needs to show a culinary versatility that justifies its place. And I think that a lot of CPGs, they can help chefs think through that. It's not that chefs can't arrive at the idea and the recipes, but a lot of them just don't have time, to be honest. They're
Mhm.
putting out fires in different locations. They're contending with a lot of stuff. So if a CPG can come with solutions and this mentality of partnership, then you can they'll be willing to work with you on that. So giving inspirational recipes, giving thought starters, maybe even helping them with their innovation pipeline based on what they're looking to fill. I think that that is one of them. And another really important factor too that I think is often overlooked is the packaging. Especially with the
Hmm.
sustainability piece that operators need to contend with. The packaging and how it can be food service friendly is really important. Packaging at retail, 2 cups of something, whether that's shredded cheese or sauce or whatever, like a chef will have a really hard time opening many, many, many of those 2 cup packages to make the bulk, you know, 20 quarts of sauce they need to make for service. And so
Exactly.
I know a lot of operators that have turned away CPGs because the packaging is not conducive to the operations. So it's this deep
Hmm.
understanding of the operations piece that will help open those doors. Yeah.
And I know you can't disclose who you work with, but maybe more of what type of companies do you work with? Is it manufacturers? Is it, um, restaurants, retailers?
A lot of it right now is manufacturers on
Hmm.
behalf of operators. So it's coming from a place of, hey, we have this opportunity of getting on this operator's menu. Can you help us develop menu items that would work with their brand? Their operations. You've been in hundreds of kitchens before. Like, you already know the implications of what it takes to launch. I'm being pulled into a lot of that as of late. Yeah. And a lot of it's
When
honestly
you,
health and wellness, which is, I think it's
yeah,
just kind of the inertia of, like, I celebrate foods that taste really great and feel really great in your body. So a lot of the brands that I work with now are like health and wellness based, which can mean a lot of different things, but that's kind of the very broad strokes.
how is it being owning your own business?
Woo! I I love it. I love it. It is probably one of the most difficult things I have ever embarked on. It is
Hmm.
rewarding and challenging and thrilling and everything great and frustrating at the same time. I think it teaches you a lot of resilience, and it teaches you a lot of believing in yourself, but also knowing when to ask for help.
Hmm.
Of you know um, all the things from accounting to biz dev to like the logistics side of it. I think it's made me a stronger chef, a stronger developer, just all around a stronger, more resilient person, because it really tests you in every direction.
Hmm.
Like, it's not just the work piece, it's like the personal piece too, like how you show up to your relationships around you, how to be able to, I don't know about balancing work life. Like, I don't really believe in work life balance, but I do believe in harmony. How do you find that harmony? But it is definitely something that I I would choose to try over and over again. I don't know if I'll be doing this forever, but it's definitely for the time being. I mean, how has it been for
Yeah.
you? Like,
Yeah, for me, my first few years, so my dad and I, we've owned our business now for 8 years, just
mhm.
over 8 years. When I first started, I didn't know, I was 6 days out of college and I had never held a full-time job. So it was learning not just the food service industry, but how to just work in a company as well simultaneously. So him and I, we started on the same day back in June of 2015. In the first few years, I feel like I didn't know. It took me a while to understand what entrepreneurship was all about. And I think it was really through the pandemic where our company started to take off. And it came around. I think when we first started, when we had $0 in sales up to our first $1 million in sales, that was a very difficult time because I did everything from sales to business development, marketing, doing the books, everything from top to top to bottom. Then once I
Wow.
got to a million, then it started to, then you can start kind of buying back your time, finding someone who can do marketing better than I can do it, or someone who can do sales better than I can do it, kind of starting to replace those types of things. But it took me a long time to get to that point and learn that valuable lesson. And it's definitely, as you said, there's great parts to it. There's frustrating parts to it. That work-life balance for me, it's out the window. I probably work too much sometimes, but I've also come to enjoy time off. I've gotten better at that, taking time off, and I call it enjoying the calm. When there's a moment, sometimes on a random Tuesday, I have no meetings, I have nothing, and my mind and body like, go to work, you got to do something. But then I have to remind myself, enjoy the calm, like just sit in your car and just not do anything for 30 minutes, or go get a coffee and just relax for an hour. Like, it's not going to kill anybody for you to take some time to yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So how many years did it take for you to get to this point?
8 years.
Right.
It took me 8 years.
6.5 more years to go. All right. I've
Uh,
only been doing this for a year
yeah,
and a
it
half.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what? You're doing fantastic. I've seen your marketing. You've built a great book of business. You are very well connected in the industry. And you know what? There's I've interviewed people on here who have had businesses that are over 100 years old. So it's all, everything is relative. And I think the biggest thing is definitely learning from the mistakes that we've made. We've made a lot of very bad mistakes where it's almost like business fundamentals 101, where things just fall through the cracks. And you kind of just, for the next time around, you're like, I can't do that same thing, or I can't work
Yeah.
with this type of client. I think that was another thing too, is when we first started, was just, I'll take on anybody who's willing to pay me, I will do it. Now, very, very selective on who we work with. And that has freed. So then when we get a client that's in our niche, they refer out other similar type manufacturers in that same exact niche. So
Yeah.
that's been very powerful for us too.
I think that's really great advice. Thank you. I think that, yeah, like holding this idea of perfection is a very dangerous concept to hold on to, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been told, like, move fast, fail fast, learn fast, and move on. Like, don't dwell. Just be like, all right, well, not going to do that again. Like learning for next time. And I do agree. Like, that's kind of about the people part, the client fit, right? That's kind of one of the reasons why I went on my own, is that, like, you get this freedom to work with the people that you want to work with, and finding the clients that are the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, like, I don't think I could do the best job for them. It's knowing when to let go and be like, you know what, this isn't my skill set, but I know somebody that can, help you with this better than I can. And in the end, everybody kind of wins when you know your skill set and you know where your strengths and your limitations lie. That's definitely a thing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, I just have to commend you. One, it's so difficult to take that leap of faith, invest in yourself, start a company. There's only a small, I'm not sure what the statistics are, but it's such a small number of people that do that. And I think just kudos to you for taking that leap and going on this journey.
Oh, thank you. I really have to thank the tribe around me. Like, I don't know about you, but I I think it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to have my own business if I didn't have, a supportive partner, a husband, supportive friends, supportive colleagues in the industry that have mentored me, having coaches asking questions, and just having a really solid, cohort around you to help, kind of calm your fears when it's like, I have no business right now. What am I doing? What am I going to do? And then all of a sudden it's like, I have too much business right now. What am I doing? What am I going to do? And just kind of helping to guide through, and be that mirror and be that cheerleader at the same time.
Yeah.
I could not do it without the people around me.
Yeah, for sure.
Agree.
You asked, kind of what was, I guess maybe more of a turning point. One thing that I definitely remember back to is in 2019. So what was that? 4 years now. I
Mhm.
joined a group. It's called Entrepreneurs Organization. I heard about it actually on a podcast, and I was like, I'm curious what it is, because at the time I'm like, I'm not surrounded by enough people who know how to run a business. So I joined this group, and they put you into something called a forum, which is like 7 or 8 people, all business owners, and you get to just bounce ideas off. You get to talk really about the emotional side of the business, and you meet once a month, and then the chapter at large, they have other events and speakers and things like that. Doing that for 4 years, I learned a boatload of stuff. Because in my former businesses, anywhere from, maybe some doing 1 or 2 million. I had one up that was a few hundred million. So it was cool to see businesses and get to talk to them intimately about how they run their day-to-day operations.
Oh, cuss yeah. Sign me up. Can you send me the link after? I'm all
Yeah, it's
about
been
that.
very cool.
Let's do that. Let's do
Totally.
that.
What do you hope to accomplish in your career that you've not yet accomplished?
Whoa, that's not a big question at all. Okay. I feel like I what I what I would want to leave behind as a legacy in the industry is one of compassion and sharing, of just helping one another and helping our communities. And I think that it's hard to say what that would evolve in over the years. If you asked me when I finished college that I would be on this podcast speaking with you, talking about experiences and actually just being a chef, I'd be like, that is crazy. But what I did know is I always wanted to help people no matter what. And so I think that as long as my North Star of helping people, helping food industry, of just helping my cohorts find that compassion, find that sharing, elevating food and celebrating it, that's what's important to me. And however that plays out, whether that's like more public speaking, or I end up teaching somewhere, or maybe I go behind the scenes and just do a ton of development work or help companies grow their brands, like whatever that means, I'm okay with that. I think what I've learned is, this nonlinear, really wild career that I've had shows that it might not make sense in the moment, but somehow it all connects. And so you
Mhm.
just kind of have to trust in the universe and go for the ride, see where it takes you. I'm
That's
pretty
right.
sure that did
That's right.
not answer your question, but there it is.
No, it's very spot on. I thought it was a great response. Um, I think just in our conversation here, you're destined for greatness. I can already feel it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think just the way that you view food, I think you have a very unique perspective. I think it's and being that you have your own business, and as you scale that out, I think you're going to find success in this industry. I think what you're onto is something that people are looking for. Maybe, the way you made me think about just eating gushers. It was a way that I've never really viewed food before, and I learned something from this conversation in just 30-40 minutes, which that's pretty profound. And as you do that on a large scale, you're just going to crush it.
Aw, thanks. Ooh, I hope I do you justice. But thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you for
Well, I
having
just
me.
want to say thank you so much for taking the time, coming on here, sharing your story. I really, as I've mentioned, enjoyed our conversation. I, I'm just so grateful that you were vulnerable and open and shared. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And we'll cross paths soon, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Absolutely.